I typically want to bathe with water that's a little bit cooler versus a little bit warm. Reason being, I want that cool water to almost act like a cool therapy on their legs. And I am generally using the water, the cooler water, to kind of bring their body temperature down a little bit because of our temperature being so high and our humidity being so high. It's not an ice bath because it's not ice water, but it's that same thought process. I just got done riding Mariah, and she's pretty sweaty. Our temperature is in the, I think, upper 60s right now, and it's warm enough. I loped her a lot. It's warm enough that she's pretty sweaty. And I want to talk about like cooling a horse down or when to rinse. In our part of the country here, we all sweat. We sweat, the horses sweat. I can't really go by sweat because summertime our temperature will be over 100 with 80-90% humidity. So we all just sweat standing here. So what I go by with when I can rinse is I go by the horse's respirations. I can watch them take breaths. I can watch the nose flaring, and I can feel the heartbeat. You can feel the heartbeat in their legs pretty easy. And another thing I look at is the brightness, the alertness of their eyes and their ears. And I take all that in consideration when I'm deciding when it's okay to rinse a horse off. Now, a horse like her, she's pretty sweaty. I start with the legs all the time, but I'll spend a little extra time with the legs. But her respirations are close to normal. Her heart rate is close to normal. So she can be rinsed all over. Now, you're in a different part of the country where you're not used to seeing a sweaty horse, then your guidelines might be a little bit different. But when you look at her, her nostrils are not flaring. She's not taking big breaths back here. That's what I really want to avoid. When they're taking big breaths, and I'm not going to rinse them then, because that's when you get the muscle spasms that tighten up. When they're taking big breaths, they're trying to oxygenate their blood so that the muscles can get what they need to get. At this point, when their respirations are down, then their oxygen level is good, their muscles have gotten what their muscles need, and your chances of getting a cramp tying up, that's basically what tying up is a cramp, is very, very low, even if they're sweaty. So if you have any questions about that, put it in the comments. I know a lot of you live in a part of the country or part of the world where your horse really doesn't sweat all that much. And I know a lot of you, like me, live in the south or warmer, more humid environments where pretty much you start walking and they sweat. So that varies drastically from region to region depending on where you're at. And just because you see a horse that's sweaty and you're not used to seeing that doesn't really mean that horse is hot or doesn't mean he's stressed. It doesn't necessarily mean that. This is Mariah. She has been in the south for a long time. She's used to our climate, used to our environment and humidity. It's not a big deal for her. Now, some of the horses that come in from up north, different parts of the country, their sweat is going to be a little bit different because they're not used to our environment. And I also can see that in their eyes and their ears. Like take for instance Denali that came in a couple years ago. He came from the northeast. Trigger, the Mustang that came in a year or two ago, he came from the northwest. Both of those horses, they sweated just standing in the stall because they weren't used to our heat and environment. And Trigger, for instance, he would take pretty deep breaths in the beginning just standing. So you have to take all that into account. When I get a horse sent into me to train, that's all the things that I have to look at. A horse that's used to our environment, I'm going to work a little bit different than a horse that's not used to our environment. She's used to our climate, she's sweaty, her respirations are normal, her heart rate's normal, she can be rinsed. I get a lot of people ask about rinsing with hot water or cold water. We do have hot water running to the wash rack, but I try to set the temperature so that it's just kind of lukewarm. I don't like it real hot or real cold. In our winters, we get cold weather, but they're not frigid cold like in a lot of other parts of the country. And our summers are pretty hot and humid. This is well water, so it's cool to begin with. And I typically want to bathe with water that's a little bit cooler versus a little bit warm. Reason being, I want that cool water to almost act like a cool therapy on their legs. And I am generally using the water, the cooler water, to kind of bring their body temperature down a little bit because of our temperature being so high and our humidity being so high. It's not an ice bath because it's not ice water, but it's that same thought process. A little bit cooler water. Now, if I'm working a young horse that isn't used to being bathed, then I'm going to make sure it's about room temperature because I don't want them to be stressed with cold water. But over the years, I've played with a lot of different water temperatures, rinsing horses off, and my experience is they like a little bit cooler water than say what I like for a shower. You don't want it cold, but I don't want it like the temperature that I'd want to take a shower either. Anytime they're sweaty, always going to rinse the sweat off. That's pretty important in our area of the country because they sweat a lot and they need that salt rinsed off of their skin pretty regularly. In the summertime, I have a place down the other end of the barn where I'll stand them tied after they're rinsed to stand in front of a fan to dry. Here, getting them dry in the summertime. Getting them dry after they're rinsed is important. That might not be as important in other parts of the country, but that's pretty important here. Because with our temperatures and our humidity, you'll end up with rain rot and other fungal issues just because they stay wet so much. This is kind of a little cooler than room temperature water. And she has an expression to me that looks like it feels good. Not cold, but not hot. Just a little cooler than room temperature. All right. So this is Mariah. I'll put a link to the other Wash Rack Wednesday videos. If you have any questions, put it in the comments. Until next time, thank you for watching.